Good evening and welcome to this edition of newscasts in the English language on Canal the International. I'm called Maureen D. At Top Stories. Of the Prime Minister to Bamenda, most have come and gone, but with leaving behind some sorrow-provoking happenings, which also took place in other parts of the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon connected to the 4-day visit. And shocking incidents in Douala and Yaoundé, two women corpses discovered in the gutter and another in a river. Inhabitants have blamed both incidents on rising insecurity. And tension keep rising at the National Civil Engineering Equipment Pole. Even after the installation of the new management theme, the workers insist their problems must be addressed first. And the state burial decree for Sultan Ibrahim Bombonjoya, the Prime Minister and head of government, will represent the head of state at the funeral of the man the president refers as his very good friend. Those are major stories. Details right ahead. Not leaving behind sorrow-provoking happenings, or which also took place in other parts of the Northwest region of Cameroon connected to his 4-day visit. Some of them are recounted in the following story. While all attention was focused on the Prime Minister's 4-day stay in Bamenda, some atrocities were going on in other parts of the Northwest region. Even though very shocking, brutal killing of the school head teacher of Kong Mangha in Womb Central subdivision did not attract much public attention. Reports say the about 50-year-old Funam Rene was killed on the day of the Prime Minister's arrival, and the body dismembered for alleged reasons that the school was operational, though others say, as a money lender, the debtors could have committed the act as a means of cancelling their debts. Whatever the reason, the Mencho Divisional Administration says it is handling the matter. As if to dampen the sojourn of the head of government, the village of Kikaikom in Bui Division was being razed down following heavy gunfire between government forces and separatist fighters. As if these two incidents were not enough, a bike rider was shot dead and in Taturu neighborhood in Bamenda 2 subdivision for not respecting the imposed lockdown of 1 day of separatist fractions to thwart the visit of the Prime Minister. Shocking Friday at Los Samaritan area behind Don Bosco at Miboman in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, following the lifeless body of a pregnant woman that was found wrapped in a bread spread and later dumped in a gutter. At the time of this report, the corpse had been taken away by the council, but the population remained in shock. As we hear in the following story.
In her 40s was discovered. Her head at one end and the legs the other way. The rest of the body inside the hole, wrapped in a bed sheet. Noticed by a passerby early this Friday morning. The population of Le Samaritan area behind Don Bosco at the Mimboman neighborhood in Yaoundé in shock alerted the Yaoundé 4 council officials and firemen. The barbaric act from all indication was done elsewhere and dumped here.
Parce que le sang même qui coulait, vous-même voyez, là, si on sait quand on a tué ici, là, on devait voir le sang partout.
Surprising also that a supposed assassin left the woman with her phone and identity card. And through the last call on her phone, the officials were able to reach her heavily pregnant.
Puisqu'elle devait accoucher déjà après 6 jours.
Adding that the husband is dead and still in mortuary, that makes the story even more complicated. Those were seriously wounded. The witness cannot tell if they have been chopped off. The corpse taken away and investigations opened on the murder case.
And the lifeless body of another woman found this morning in floating waters at Banya and Pong Banya in Cameroon's economic city, Douala. Eyewitnesses see the woman most have been killed elsewhere and the lifeless body dumped in the water. As we hear the following story. Crowds of persons gathered around the shocking discovery of a lifeless body of a woman floating in the water. The corpse, according to residents, was discovered in the early hours of the morning. Many claim the lady in her 40s might have been killed elsewhere and the body dumped in the water. Nobody could identify the corpse, even though others quickly said it could be a mad woman who must have suffered in the hands of some criminals before meeting her doom. Others rejected claims it could be suicide or she got drowned after seeing visible signs on her body. I will say with all authority that she did not get drowned. The corpse came from elsewhere. She was killed and dumped in the water. It's difficult to say if she got drowned or she was killed. It's shocking. The corpse stayed on the spot for hours. With the absence of firefighters, security officers had no other option but to remove the corpse from the water. Inhabitants have expressed shock and consternation, blaming the entire situation on rising insecurity. And tension keeps arising at the National Civil Engineering Equipment Pool as workers continue to demand over 13 months of unpaid salary, though the newly appointed Director General was installed today. The workers say their problems must be addressed before any other thing. More in the following story will hasten with our student journalist in Yaoundé.
After weeks of prevention, the new appointed director of his office, with the help of the police and the gendarmerie forces, but his stay in the office, the furious workers insist is not guaranteed.
Presently,
we are waiting for him to come out, and we are going to lock the gate again, given that they have decided to use it to join them in the fight.
The workers who have been on a continuous strike for 3 weeks keep demanding their 13-month salary to be paid as the only solution to take them back to work. The new Director General equally admits that the financial autonomy of the state parastatals at the moment cannot satisfy the demand of the striking employees.
Since 2015, Margeni has become a public company. And it has to produce, amongst which the needs for payment, for permanent payment of salaries, the needs for daily functioning of the company, and also the objective of yielding benefits.
Annoyed laborers are equally against the appointment of Ebonge Gustav as the new Director General, given that he was the deputy to the outgoing Director General, and the fear is that with him, poor management is bound to continue.
Environmental experts have challenged all Cameroonians to join efforts in the fight against land degradation, which remains a huge threat to human health. This as a process to restore over 12 million hectares of degraded land and of forest in Cameroon by 2030, in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. More in the following story with Hyson Chia.
Restoring the fast disappearing biodiversity and forest resources remains a call for concern to Cameroon and other African countries. The IFA 100 initiative is aimed at restoring over 100 million hectares of degraded forest and land by 2030. Cameroon fully involved in the restoration process.
The government of Cameroon has engaged 12 million hectares to be restored, and which is the most important engagement in Central Africa.
4 years after embarking on the initiative, stakeholders are meeting in Yaoundé this October 7 to evaluate the evolution of the mechanism, create synergy and strengthen loopholes to meet the expected deadline.
We want to take a stock about organizing all partners or inviting all partners to tell us the type of project they implement, what are the main results the main challenges, and also the roadmap for the next 12 months.
Presiding at the opening ceremony of the workshop, Cameroon Minister of Environment, Protection of Nature and Sustainable Development re-echoed the need for all Cameroonians to join forces in this restoration process to provide solutions to climate change and the growing environmental threats. It was also an opportunity to examine the proposed legal text on forest and land restoration in Cameroon, elaborating the next steps to be endorsed by the Prime Minister, head of government, an instrument to ease the recovery of degraded land.
Ahead of the 8th Congress of the African Society of Pediatric Surgery and the first Congress of the Cameroonian Society of Pediatric Surgery to hold in Yaoundé between November 4 to the 6th, 2021, threefold pre-Congress activities will take part at the Yaoundé Gynecological and Pediatric Hospital. They include free clip, lip and palate operations, surgery for children, amongst many others, as we hear the following story with Beatrice Ngamu.
Congenital malformation is a physical defect present in a baby at birth.
Meaning that before the child comes out of the mother's womb or is delivered, he or she has the malformation already.
A situation not very welcoming in our African setting. And this is where the expertise of the pediatric surgeon comes to play, to repair the physical defect in the baby and solidify the family bond also. Cleft lips and palate is a common example. Few risk factors.
Consanguinity, that's marriage with a cleft palate. There's a higher probability that in that same family you have another child with a cleft palate.
Cleft lips reconstruction is among the 3 pediatric surgeries organized as pre-Congress activities in the coming days at the Gyneco-Obstetric and Pediatric Hospital, Nguso in Yaoundé.
Then from the 28th to the 30th, we will be doing live surgeries for children with anorectal malformation, which are simply children who are delivered with an absence of the anus. The last group of malformation are those technically called bladder exstrophy. So these are children who have an absence of the anterior abdominal wall of the bladder. They are constantly having a urine loss. Take care of those children from the 1st to the 2nd of November.
Activities in line with the 8th Congress of the African Society of Pediatric Surgery and the 1st Congress of Cameroon Society of Pediatric Surgery next November the 4th to the 6th at the Yaoundé Conference Center.
And the head of state has decreed the official funeral of Sultan Ibrahim Mbombo Njoya. The president decrees art official funeral has been announced in honor of the Sultan Ibrahim Mbombo Njoya, senator and former minister who died on September 27, 2021 in Paris from after an ailment. The official funeral will take place on Saturday, November 9, 2021 in Fumbanu Division, West region of Cameroon. Meantime, more than 200 crowds of mourners from all walks of life, including high-profile personalities, thronged Yaoundé October 7, 2021, to welcome the mortal remains of Sultan Ibrahim Mbombo Njoya. The remains arrived Cameroon from Paris, France, at the Yaoundé Simaleng Airport. Hyson Cha was at the Simaleng at the Yaoundé Simaleng Airport. His report.
They were out in their numbers, traditional rulers, a host of government ministers, members of the upper house of assembly, church authorities, family members, and Cameroonians of diverse origin to welcome the remains of the statesman, Sultan of Bamoun, Ibrahim Mbombo Njoya, here at the Simaleng International Airport. A moment to pay last tribute to the fallen king in strict respect of some traditional norms. The life of the Bamoun Sultan, here reviewed in pictures, as Christians equally commits his soul into the hands of the Almighty God. with the Muslim faithfuls. The huge waiting crowd at the explanade of the airport could only bid farewell to His Majesty Mbombo Njoya in traditional rhythms. The mortal remains of the former Minister for Sports will be laid to rest this afternoon at the Bamum Dynasty, Nun Division, West Region of Cameroon.
And just this news coming in, Cameroon is presently leading Mozambique in eliminatory matches against World Cup 2022. We'll come back to that in a subsequent editions of the newscast. And this brings us to the end of this edition of News on Canal the International in the English language. And coming up on next is the brief with Buba and Gomna. But we also have news in the French language at exactly 7:50. This never Senkan with Eme Kati Mukuri. As for me, I'll be back on Monday for another edition of the news in the English language. Good night.